Now, we have a absolute expert in the field of finance and investments, not only locally, but on the global scene. Mr. Mark McAllister was born in Guildford. Am I saying it right? Guildford. I'm so sorry. From the UK, and has been in South Africa since 2016, following a successful career in mergers and acquisitions in London and the Middle East. Mark is qualified in wealth management via the UK Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments. Until recently, he was Cape Town area manager for the largest IFA in the world. Mark specializes in looking after globally minded high net worth individuals and returning South African expats looking to manage global assets from locations around the globe. Now, when it comes to tax, investments, properties, and guidelines onto what you should be thinking about when it comes to money and investments, I don't know of anybody on our continent, perhaps the world, that's more qualified to tackle the subject. Congratulations on all your achievements and how much value you've added to all your customers so far. And you know, you're in your 40s, you're just getting started. I can't wait to see you just grow and grow and grow. Not only your net worth, but especially for your customers.
That's the goal.
Thank you for being here. I'm gonna kick it off. I loved what you said off camera, so I'm gonna start it there. We have R1 million and $1 million. Magically, boom. I wish I could do that, by the way. I'll do it multiple times a day. And you asked everybody in the studio, you have to invest by taking the R1 million or $1 million and putting it in a safe. You can't invest it into anything, you have to lock it up, but you can only choose one.
Yeah. So it's the equivalent currency. So $1 million or about 17, 18 million rand. It's in a pile. Imagine it now. It's in
so equivalent currency.
Yeah. It's a pile of cash, and you've got it in front of you. One's dollars, one's rands. You have to put it in a safe. So you can't invest it. You can't buy a property. You can't buy stocks. It has to stay in cash. And you put it in the safe, and the safe has got a time lock on it, and it's going to open again in 10 years' time. The only choice you've got to make is, do you put rands in that safe or do you put dollars in that safe? What would you do?
Okay. So, I mean, the statistic that you gave us was shocking. So we both chose, okay, looking back historically, but it was a heated discussion because with what's going on in America right now, I know they've printed 45, 50% of all their money in the last 48 months. You know, presidents, it's a little bit unstable and a lot of noise, but you killed us. Please share.
So how much do you think the rand has depreciated against the dollar over the last 40 years? Have a guess. You know, pick a number. You probably got a number in your mind. The answer is 1,250%. So if I came to you and said, hey, here's a great investment, it's called the rand, it's only going to lose you 1,250% over the next 40 odd years, we'd probably never speak again.
First bump, thank you for your time. I've got things to do. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank
Bye-bye.
You,
yeah.
Exactly.
But yet every single day, clients in South Africa make a choice, and Africa, the wider region, to make investments in emerging market currencies and expose themselves to two risks. One is currency risk, and two is inflation risk. Okay. Now the argument from other financial services providers is, oh, don't worry about that. We'll grow that back, you know, through this investment or that investment. So you don't need to worry about it. But we see examples of this in numbers of areas. So I gave you a case study earlier as we were talking about it. A client, you know, bought a place in Bishop's Court in Cape Town. You know, in 1982, I think he bought it, and it was 100,000 rand, and it was now worth 40 odd years later, 23 million rand. So
he did well.
Did well, yeah, and everyone says that. Yeah, did well. 100,000 rand is now 23 million. Great, but he could have bought a place in Notting Hill in London for about £100,000 at the time. That's where the exchange rate was in the 80s. Okay, that property, because there's a website called Zoopla, you can go and check property prices in the UK on the postcode. It's worth £14 million So that's about 300 odd million rand. So forget the whole chat about inflation and currency depreciation that confuses everyone. Let's just use a house as a unit of exchange. By investing in South Africa 40 years ago, rather than a primary currency property market, he's lost out on 11 mansions.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
But why do we get caught up only to invest in South Africa? We all know this is a beautiful place.
Yep.
And you made a comment earlier as well, and I think that one just stuck to me.
I'm stealing that. I'm stealing that. I'm using it forever and a day. I loved your comment. Please.
It's like stay where it's sunny and warm and invest where it's cold.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. But why do we get wrapped? How do you experience the market with South Africans just being wrapped just to do our own investment? Is it because we're scared? What is it?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's look at the environment, right? So South Africa has a very insular history going all the way back to apartheid and then through independence and out the other side. But the challenge with it is that sort of insular methodology in financial services hasn't left yet. So when you sit with your financial advisor, I almost guarantee the conversation would be, you should do a retirement annuity, you should do an insurance policy, you should do maybe a tax-free saver.
10 out of 10 times it's the same conversation.
Yeah, and
at multiple companies. No offense to anybody, but that's what happens.
Yeah,
and
you're right. And the thing is, I interview these guys and girls, and they're all a bit despondent, and they're like, well, you know, am I actually planning? Is this financial planning, or am I product pushing? And the general feedback I get is that they are product pushing. You know, you need to go and sell X number of retirement annuities, X amount of life insurance policies. That's the way the industry works. It's like the UK was in the 80s and the 90s. It hasn't evolved yet. There are some examples, though, of very good, proper financial planners, but they are relatively few and far between. And they're normally independent advisors. That's what I found.
Even though the South African legal system make note on the record of advice that your customer must be put first.
But if you know no different, or you believe there is no different, because the whole system is engineered. I mean, Regulation 28 is the one for me as an outsider coming in that I look at and go, okay, for client protection purposes, 70% of your retirement funds have to be invested in South Africa. It's 0.3% of the world GDP. Okay, is that the right thing for a client? Let me ask you the question. How many Americans do you think invest in South Africa with their retirement funds?
I doubt if any.
How many Europeans? So then why are South Africans forced to invest into South Africa with the majority?
Try to keep the money, yeah?
Yeah. And that's the challenge, really. When you stand back, you start to look at the whole system, you really start to question it, then you have to say, well, what is right for clients in the longer term? And that's where we're coming from as a disruptor, trying to show the alternatives that are out there that aren't just a South African badge solution that has an international element. I mean, like the classic one that I come against is, I've got my money out of South Africa. It's been asset swapped. What is an asset swap? Well, that's where you take a load of rands, you give it to a product provider, they go and buy dollars or other investments and what have you, and it's offshore, right? That's the perception. It's offshore. Okay. Why have you taken money offshore? Well, probably because you want to protect it away from what's going on in South Africa, as a lifeboat, let's say, just in case. Yeah, that's what most people would do. But with an asset swap, if you ever wanted to get out of the country, and that was your go bag, as it were, you have to sell it back in South Africa. It comes back into rand. You then sell it into rand. So in the scenario where, let's just say, the country has gone the way of Zimbabwe, all right? I don't want to really talk about that, but let's just say it does. And you do have to go elsewhere around the world. Suddenly your money's stuck in rand. And one of the things with South Africa is that there's exchange control. You can only take out R1 million each, okay? And then the next 10 million rand each, you're able to take out with approval from the government. Now, they can change that overnight. It's not a parliamentary act. This is set by the South African Reserve Bank. So let's say that there was a sudden run on the rand, like there was a run in Zimbabwe. You have the scenario where all of your money that you think was in dollars has to come back, swap into rand, and you cannot get it out of the country unless they let you. How safe would that make you feel if you were trying to put a nest egg away in dollars because of the currency depreciation?
The way you explain it, it's not safe at all.
Yeah. So that's where businesses like us come in, because what we're trying to do is bring those international solutions to clients in Africa. South Africa is part of that, but Africa as a region. And from a growth perspective, there were 6 of us that started in earnest in 2018. We've now got a headcount of 85 in the African division. So there's a yardstick for the amount of demand that's going on the continent. And a big part of that is in South Africa.
I love what you just said. The perception of doom and gloom, let's get out of here, let's go to New Zealand, let's go to Australia, is in my opinion, a brainwashed community. It's not a big community, but it is relatively big because, everything works. The buses are on time, everything's clean, everything works. Going into a market where everything works to compete against people that are very competent, very driven on their own terrain versus solving for X year. Just take a deep breath, look around. Being in the middle of lots of problems can be an advantage. How do we help this department? How do we help this company? How do we add value here? It's very hard to do it in London. You've worked in London and in the Middle East. The level, off camera, you said we're working 18 hours a day against the elite, and that's why you are this good. But it just shows you that you relocated your whole family because the opportunity lies in Africa.
Yeah.
The growth lies here.
100%.
You can outshine here, where there you're just going to be a number.
Yeah. Another way of looking at it is in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So maybe I wasn't that good.
You were.
Maybe I wasn't. I don't know.
I know you were. For a fact you were.
But what I'm saying about that is that there is huge opportunity in Africa, but no different to some of the wealthiest entities on the planet. So the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund or the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, they made money in oil, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yes.
But they don't just own oil stocks now. They are some of the biggest investors in technology stocks around the world. Why? Because they want to diversify and they want that future growth. We shouldn't just be investing in petrol cars if electric cars are on the horizon. Those kind of things. There's always an evolution. So we need to be seeing forward. So coming back to the sort of, do we stay in South Africa or not? That's obviously a personal choice. A lot of the choices I find that clients make, though, are linked to fear and greed. So
fear and greed.
Fear and greed. It's the things that I'm managing clients every single day, every single week. So greed is, I want to buy this thing because everyone's buying it. FOMO. So if we use cryptocurrency is a great example of this. Okay, so Bitcoin got up to $70,000. Everybody wanted to buy it. Why? Because it was going to $1 million. Right?
Greed.
FOMO, greed. Okay, bought at $70,000. It's then the price action has come down the other side, and now we're sitting at around about 24, but it bottomed around about $16,000.
Yes.
Okay, fear. You've gone from there. You've lost 70, 80%. Most people throw in the towel, they capitulate, and they say, I've had enough, get me out of this thing, I just want the pain to stop. That is the period of maximum financial opportunity, when there's blood on the streets, as Sir Philip Templeton used to say, it's time to buy. I'm not saying that you should buy cryptocurrency, just to be clear, that's not advice. I'm just saying around the principles of, buy when it's cheap, sell when it's expensive. The art of an investment, though, is knowing what is cheap and what is inexpensive at that particular time.
Yeah, and most people don't know that, and that's why they need people like you.
100%.
What is the best time to start? Because you work with high-end people. What do you say to someone in their 40s that is very stable in South Africa?
Yeah.
They're scared to stop what they're doing just to move out. How do you treat that person differently from the 30-year-old?
Sure. So there's a great Indian proverb, which is the best time to start saving was 20 years ago. Okay, the next best time is today. So the most common thing that we have to work with is dealing with that procrastination, because otherwise you get to 60, 70 years of age and guess what? You've still done nothing. There's always a holiday to go on. There's always a car to buy. There's always school fees, you name it. So one of the things I encourage clients to look at is a thing called FIRE, Financial Independence Retire Early. It's an American movement, and there's a number of individuals in America that followed FIRE as a principle, and they've retired in their 30s. Okay.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying that you should live off of ramen and sleep in a cardboard box and save absolutely everything, but the principle is that you turn your approach to investments on its head. You save first, and then you pay for your life second. Okay. So it's like saying if the government suddenly applied another 20% tax tomorrow, we'd have to pay it, right? The difference is that you're going to say 20% I'm going to tax myself, and that's going to go into my investment strategy. Where that investment strategy is another discussion. Where's the garage, where's the vehicle, where's the engine for that investment? But the principle, the discipline of investing in your future self is something that should be instilled, I feel, in schools. We should be teaching our kids that you don't spend everything that you have just because it's there. You have to think about the future. I mean, my kids have been saving into a tax-free efficient vehicle in the UK since they were born. That's because of the principle that I don't want them to get to their 20s and not be able to afford their first house. They're able to afford a deposit on their first investment property because we've been saving all the way through. And I engage with them, and they know what investments they are. I mean, my son will tell you about certain funds that he's got invested because he even researches the fund managers. He's a bit like me in that way.
Beautiful.
Well, I can imagine that he knows more than the two of us.
Yeah.
But that's important. It's always been a thing with me working with young people is budget, invest, budget, save, get the amount of salary you earn. You need to have at least that 6 times in your bank. But that is on a small scale. So I just love this to the maximum, but I think we've got a lot to learn.
Yeah. So there's a triangle that I use with clients that sort of might guide people through what stage of life that they're in. So, first and foremost, you need to get to a point where you're financially stable. The walls are from the door. However, your life should be run like a business. Okay. And like a business, you drive revenue. Okay. In the middle, you cut costs. Okay, and at the bottom you've got a profit margin. That is life. Okay, now if you want a really successful business, guess what? You drive more revenue and you cut costs at the same time. If you can't cut your costs, you drive more revenue. If you can't drive more revenue, you cut costs. That's it. That's the principle, and you should apply those same principles to your life. And the challenge is most people will make their cost base fit their lifestyle. So they go up, they earn another £1 million a year. Guess what? They've now moved to a bigger house. They've got a bigger car, and sadly, quite often what I see is that people spend money that they don't have on things that they don't need to impress people that they don't like.
Yeah.
Truth.
So I want to, if you don't mind, I
Sure.
love you brought the kids up. So you see yourself as a disruptor. You want to add value. You want to consult, identify the need, and solve for the X. The offshore investment or whatever it is the client is trying to achieve. Good. We did a couple of episodes on the South African schooling system and the fact that we are okay to have a 30% pass rate. We're thinking about dropping it even more because we need those numbers up. And I want to ask you this question. The beautiful thing that you said is my kids have been saving ever since they were born. Okay, our kids barely passed with 30%, have to compete against your kids. Okay, there's no competition. All right, now going a layer deeper, because that's surface one, a layer deeper, if you don't mind sharing some of the conversations around how old are your children now, by the way?
13 and 10.
13 and 10, great. What is the normal conversation around money? That because you're a very intentional person, you've got an intention for everything. I can see that. What is the conversation with your children around money and around things that they are interested in buying, things that they've seen on TV? I want the audience to compare the conversation that they have with their children, if you don't mind. If you
Sure.
don't mind sharing.
Sure, no problem at all. Yeah, great question. So how do I approach money with the children? So first and foremost, I was brought up in a hard-working family. So I used to go to work with my dad on the weekends. You know, that's kind of where that work ethic was instilled. So part of this is instilling that work ethic into the children as well, because part of understanding work is the reward that we receive in monetary value. Okay. One of the things that we then have to discuss is that then with the money that you accumulate over time, what do you use to exchange that in value for? Okay, so do you want to go and buy the latest fluffy toy that has been marketed on TV to encourage you to buy it and what have you? And how will you feel once you've bought that and you have no money left and you can't buy something else? Those kind of conversations. And it's
at the age of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, and it's interesting, I've got the eldest boy and the youngest girl, two different personalities. So my son is very much more delayed gratification. So he will happily hoard and save and invest because he wants more longer term. Whereas my daughter, and I love her to bits, she's a little bit more passionate, and so she walks in to a shop and the first thing she wants, she's going to buy it.
Done.
Yeah. So then I have to then say, well, how about we leave it there because it's still going to be there. Let's go around the shops a bit more and then we'll come back to that thing. And then let's ask ourselves, you know, had we bought it right at the start and we've missed out on those other things, would we, you know, how would we feel about that? And just trying to think about that. So it's important that children, I feel, learn about the importance of the value of money, but very, very pivotal is teaching them about delayed gratification. You know, you have to be okay to say, I'm not going to satisfy myself in the moment now to make myself feel better in exchange for, I want to feel better longer term because I'm more financially secure. And that's one thing that I do feel is missing in our educational system across the whole world. There is not enough focus on the importance of financial freedom. Right? It should be a module that every child on planet Earth learns, that you should get to a point where you're working not because you have to, but because you want to. Whereas unfortunately what happens is we end up in a situation where we're all living paycheck to paycheck. I come back to those principles I was saying earlier about, you know, buying things we don't need and what have you. But if we instilled it early on that run your life like a business, get your revenue levels up, keep your costs under control, accumulate and get to a point where you've got a passive income stream that's providing for you so you don't have to go to work. You know, then you're doing something you love. The mental health issues that come from the anxieties caused with financial pressures would dissipate, and I genuinely feel that people would feel happier in life. But that's a whole nother subject that I haven't even gotten to.
Amazing. And these are the type of conversations that go on around the dinner table. What is your reward system? So if I'm 10 years old, Daddy, okay, I want to earn 500 Rand. How do I earn it in your household? Because while I'm asking you this question, I've got an opportunity to speak to somebody that I really look up to, that's, you know, with a B, a billionaire in dollars. And his is very interesting. So he goes and buys Legos. But each Lego has a number of pages read attached to the Lego. So the small Lego box is 200 pages. And it goes right up to 20,000 pages. Then it's, you know, this the biggest Lego that you get. So if you want that Lego toy, no problem. You have to give me 200 pages. If you want to have half an hour of iPad time, you have to give me X amount of pages. I really like that. I'm curious to find out, how do I earn money in your household?
Sure. So, I mean, firstly, that point about reading, I mean, literally that's a non-negotiable in our house about reading. We have instilled reading in our children since, we read to them as babies, they then read. And actually, I have the problem now, my son will take a book to a restaurant and he'll be reading in a restaurant, whereas other kids have iPads, he'll be reading at the table. I have to tell him to stop and focus on the conversation. So reading is very, very important. So that I agree with. But as far as the value exchange that you're talking about, how do we encourage our children to do the right thing? like with any incentive, you've got to look at the end behavior that you're looking for, and then how do you reward it. So the end behavior that I think that we're looking for is for children to question what's going on with money, okay, and ask themselves, is that a fair value that I am going to get in exchange for that thing, okay, whatever that thing would be. And then once I've got that money, how do I then deploy that at some point in the future, and on what? So yes, our children do get paid for, or they receive monetary value for chores. Okay, some chores, not all chores. There's an expectation that certain chores happen with no financial reward. Why? Because guess what? When you're an adult, you do have to go and clean the bathroom. You do have to go and stack the dishwasher and those sorts of things.
It's non-negotiable.
But then one of the things that we have done is encourage our children to think about how they can generate revenue themselves. So I've encouraged children to think about. So my son, as an example, did a charitable endeavor where he created an owl show. Okay, so he got these owls and eagles and they came in and they raised money through that, and that allowed him then to invest in owl boxes for our estate, and then he secured them. He got hold of the contractors and got them to put them up. So he did all of that himself. So he's then able to say, I achieved that with money. There was something that was needed. The owls didn't have owl boxes in our forest. He went and created a solution and then made it happen. And then that shows him the power of work, the power of money, and actually how it feels good to do something for other people.
Enjoyment.
Amazing. There's a huge difference. Huge difference. Okay.
Well, I know the trick with mine. If it's in my purse, he's going to spend it. I'd rather pay the money into his account, and then he will not buy that pair of shoes. Very. But to get in there, you know.
Okay. So your solution that you provide, I know you are a specialist in high net worth individuals. Do you look at the whole spectrum and say, okay, I'm gonna basically my question is, how can we approach you? You're obviously an expert in your field. At what age group can you assist with what problem and grow the person's investments?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense of the question.
Yeah.
In my 20s, what language am I using with you? What are you guiding me to do? In my 30s, in my 40s, pre-children, let's do it this way. Pre-kids, pre-marriage, married with kids, responsibility, and not financially free, but financially stable. You use the quote, the wall is away from you, so it's not crushing you. At what stage are you going to guide your customer in which direction?
Sure. Okay. So as far as the life journey, from the point where you really start to earn money, the key to it is make a decision firstly on what kind of life that you want to lead. Okay?
In the beginning.
Right at the beginning. So as soon as you're going in, and I had this discussion actually with a lad that's at varsity, and he was asking me the same thing. I said, right, make a decision about where you want to be. Do you want to live in the moment, short term, okay, and always have challenges around finances? Or do you want to get to a point at some point in your life where you can relax knowing that you are financially secure and financially free? It's a choice. It's as simple as that. It's like the whole Yoda thing, that do or do not, there is no trying. Okay, either you're going to be one or the other. Once you make the decision to invest in your longer term self, then I can assist you.
Okay.
That's the first thing. I can't help you if you're going to be short term focused, because you won't be able to help yourself. As a general principle, you need to focus on the long term delayed gratification. Okay. Then as you move through life, how do you do it? This is where I come back to that financial independence, retire early movement. The more that you commit to that journey, the quicker you will get there, or the more money that you will have, the more secure that you will be. Okay. Then where do I personally come in? I predominantly work with entrepreneurs, high net worth individuals. So normally at the point where someone has in the region of $300,000 minimum of liquid investments that they want to go and do something with, I would be able to sit down with them and have a pointed discussion about how that fits into their longer term strategy. And that's probably going to be outside of South Africa, complemented with some other bits and pieces. So that's the typical sort of, so it starts there, and at some point along that journey, depending on whether you're employed or whether you're self-employed, you might get there sooner. But yeah, $300,000 really is a bit of a yardstick that I kind of say that at that point we're able to really kick in and help those kind of clients.
And make a difference.
That was
Make a
my
big difference.
question.
And disrupt.
Yes.
Disrupt. I love, we're jumping back and forward, but initially, this is proof that you're not a product pusher, because you didn't say, if you give me $300,000, 1, 2, 3, 4 is exactly how we get. It depends from person to person.
Yeah.
Would you like to have a return on your investment in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years? Or like the gentleman that invested 100,000 Rand and 40 years later, you got his children's children will enjoy that hopefully, if they are. That's one thing that I want to touch. Do you want to speak about protecting generational wealth? A family that has created wealth?
Yep.
And around protecting it, how do we not get that black sheep, because there's always one, that black sheep of the family go and squander everything that parents and grandparents have.
Yeah, great question. So I started a family business, and I worked with a number of family businesses through the period when I was buying and selling companies. And unfortunately, when I arrived in a business to buy it, it's normally because it had failed. That's why we were buying it. And it was normally an aggressive takeover. We would be asset stripping. The first thing I'd probably be doing is laying a load of people off. And quite often it would be second, third or fourth generation is where that would go wrong. So the founder creates the business, and then the second generation sometimes will grow it and evolve it and that sort of thing. And then quite commonly third generation is where it normally goes wrong. And
why? Why does it go wrong?
Spoiled.
No, normally.
That is a really great question. Let's come back to the discussion we just had about the kids. Okay. Let's say self-made man or woman came from hardship, created the business, built it, worked on it, invested in it long term. Second generation came along, okay, went to a better school, didn't fight so much, maybe didn't have to think about money as much. Third generation comes along, they're driven to school, okay, they're maybe going cross-border for university and what have you. Maybe they're not used to having to fight and they start to relax a bit too much. That's a common theme that I've seen in that old line of work, where normally it's because the person that is leading that business doesn't have the fight to keep going and make it a success in that environment that it's now in, and then it normally falls by the wayside.
I want to ask you a follow-up question. I'm
Sure.
loving this line of back and forward.
Yeah.
Do you blame it on, if you were to, I know it's an unfair question, but if you were to, do you blame it on the parent perhaps being too stuck into growing the business, solving problems, going into new markets, not paying attention to the children because the kids are okay, I didn't even have shoes. They stay in a mansion. They're going to a great school, being influenced by a system that was designed to work a couple of 100 years ago, in my opinion. Could be wrong. Or do you blame it on, the child on its own? He didn't have it in him. He didn't have the grit that the parent had.
Do you know what? It's a fantastic question. There's a saying which is, I'm trying to remember it, so forgive me if I get it wrong. I think that hard times create hard people, and then those hard people
create good times,
which create softer people. Softer people then create harder times, and there's this constant cycle. And to a certain extent, I think it can be a little bit that of my experience. I bought probably nearly 20 odd different companies in a fairly niche industry over a decade or so, and the common themes were quite often that second or third generation weren't prepared to do the bit that maybe the previous generation, they wouldn't go that little bit further.
Who do you put that on? Do you put that on the previous generation, or I know I'm asking you the question.
It's a fascinating one, because it's hard to blame the children, right? Because
Agreed.
it's
They
hard.
don't know
Agreed.
better.
Children never
They
know.
got-
They're a product of the environment, their upbringing, you're absolutely right. And quite often, successful entrepreneurs will move at a pace where very little else matters. So zero, laser focus, everything comes back to the business. But in doing so, then the children sometimes can become neglected almost, not intentionally. Yes, we'll go on the holidays and I'll shower you with money to make up for the fact I've been working 7 days a week. Oof, that I've seen plenty of times before. And then that's where then, as that child then grows, then maybe to a certain extent a bit of nepotism is at play as well. So then the next generation comes in, and are they as competent as they should be if they were hired to do that role just by an independent panel? I don't know. So there's so many different. That's a whole other discussion around intergenerational business planning. And sometimes you get it right. Sometimes there's some great examples. I mean, look at Ford as a great example.
Yes.
There's so many businesses that have made that leap.
Yes.
But statistically, so many businesses fail second and third generation, and for various different reasons. And trying to get that balance right, where it does work and it is successful, is really challenging.
Beautiful. I think, in my opinion, you're getting it right because there's a certain expectation. If you want more, there's certain things that needs to be done. At 10 years old, creating houses for owls, all on his own is just a byproduct of good values and principles and solid work ethic. Otherwise, you would never have achieved it at the 10-year-old tender age. So, wow, I am loving this conversation. I want to go different direction.
Sure.
Currently, crypto is very volatile. I come to you, I meet your criteria. The yardstick is $300,000. That's about 6 million rand, give or take. I've got 6 million rand. Right now, it's a very difficult question. How do we invest that money? Do we put a percentage into crypto? Do we put a percentage into an offshore property? What do you think is a good starting point?
Sure. I can't answer that.
Not okay.
Okay. No, but I'll tell you why I can't answer that. Because prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. Okay.
If you went to the dentist and said, I've got a pain in my mouth, you open one, they just pulled the first tooth out.
Got you.
Yeah, it's the same. So part of the financial planning journey is that we sit down and I understand about you, I understand about your family, I understand about the goals, all those kind of things. And then we say, right, there is an amount of money that is, let's say it's the $300,000 as an example. What do we do with that? Okay. Now, if you've said to me through our discovery process, do you know what, Mark? I hate the idea of stock markets. It's all a fugazi. It means nothing. Don't talk to me about anything like that. I could sit there and say, let's put together a stocks and shares portfolio that will do this, that, and the other. But you're probably not going to be that interested in it.
And then be checked out, yes.
Right.
But exactly what you said in the beginning, you're not a product pusher, you're a consultant.
Correct.
You need to examine my fears are different to your fears.
And it's
completely
about the
different to your
family.
fears.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's about the family.
Yeah. What would make you sleep well at night?
What makes your pillow soft?
Yeah, soft.
There you go. If the children are going to be international globetrotters, they go to the UK or America for university, have we provisioned for those educational costs as an international student? So there's something. So we might attack that in a slightly different way, than if it was that there was no children involved. And then if they go to university over there, statistically, they're more likely to settle internationally.
Yes.
So are you going to be able to get on that flight and go and see the grandchildren or go and move there? Or, all those kind of discussions are the things where I blend the experience of similar people to say, these are what you should be thinking about. So coming back to what do we buy? Well, we can buy anything. We can buy anything in the world. The essence of it is that we need to buy something that we think is relatively cheap and is going to be more expensive in the future. And we need to find something that fits your risk profile, that you feel comfortable with. So if you're a property investor, I might say to you, okay, well, look, I know that you love property. How about we go and look at some investment property that I feel has got better metrics than the equivalent property in South Africa, as an example, you know. But again, one of the things that we do through that discovery process is trying to understand, how do you feel about South Africa? So
If it's,
sorry, go on.
let's say it's someone that just wants to stay in South Africa, no intention moving out of the country.
Live warm, invest cold.
Yes, so they just want to earn better money with the investment. They don't want to move. They've got no intention, and the children already at the age, let's say children at the age of 20, study, and they want to stay in South Africa. Of course, you get families like that that've got no intention moving.
100%. So let me ask you a question then. Okay, let's talk about the future of South Africa. All right, so 20 years from now, back to today. So we're now 2053, looking back. How has South Africa performed over the next 20 years? So 0%, let me give you a scale, 0 to 100%. So 0 is, it's gone the way of, let's say, Venezuela rather than Zimbabwe, but it's hyperinflation. Okay, there's no food on the shelves. You know, the governance has broken down. People are fleeing. You know, the worst case scenario, the doomsday scenario, is 0%. 100% is that it's gone the way of Singapore, right? So maybe a new government is in place. They've re-energized the country. Everyone's got a job. You know, everybody's investing and building their wealth. You know, foreign investment is flowing in. I don't know, the rand's now at 4
and that's
rands.
what we believe it wants.
Yeah, so somewhere between 100, let's be honest, I don't think either of those scenarios is going to happen.
No.
Where do you think we are?
Well, no, I can't, I'm the consultant.
Good.
Where do you think, 0 to 100, and where do you think? Just what do you think? You tell me.
No, I would say around about in the middle, because South Africa is not going to, I think we've gone through that curve, that we might just catch up in the next couple of years to say, no, we need to save this. I believe it. I don't think we're not going to be out of trouble. But I can't see that South Africa is going to have a downfall.
So for me, the future always looks bright. I'm an immigrant child. I love South Africa. I think currently Eskom has a huge part in the country waking up and potentially electing a new government. One that will have a clear leader that says, I'm going to give deadlines. I will go and raise funds, and by this and this year, this is the megawatt production that we are anticipating. That's you know, that's the type of thing that keeps me up at night. And in the context of the future looks bright. And obviously it's a dream, and I don't think it's far-fetched if we continue down this road. I think the country stands up and re-elects a leader that can sell a big enough vision and a big enough dream to everybody. And I think Eskom is the common denominator. So if I'm running for office, you know, that's what I'm solving for. That creates a trusted market for overseas investment. I mean, just on a small side note, a couple of weeks ago, you know, our management team goes and visits the BMW plant up the road in Roslyn. We are under budget, over target. It runs. It's an absolute well-oiled machine, and we've got a wealthy businessman that you know is a friendly of Mac Motors that comes with us, and we sit in a boardroom with the leadership team of the plant, and they're going around the room asking, what did you think? I'm like, you know, the robots and the technology that the Germans have invested and brought into the country. So everybody's impressed by, you know, the tech and the speed and the accuracy. And the person who's got a very big property portfolio says, I am proud to be South African today. And I get emotional and I almost get teary. I said, why? He says, you know, this is an industrial area up the road from our dealership, and we are manufacturing at the world standard, beating in some aspects even the people that designed this car. We are whipping their behind in the middle of an Eskom crisis, in the middle of political instability. So we have the potential for that. So
We've got the people.
Absolutely. We've got the will to win. Where do I see? I'm going to be at about 75%, in my opinion. You know, hopefully, if, but only if, we solve for a leader that stands up, sells a vision, and goes, cuts all the fat. There's lots of fat. And I'm not just saying it's the one party or the second. There's lots of fat in all the parties. Cuts out the fat, becomes lean, cuts cost. I love your analogy. Drives revenue, attracts foreign investment. And, you know, I believe the future for our country looks bright, but we are in desperate need of a leader that stands up and says, I'm going to do it. And I'm motivated by a win for our continent rather than a financial gain for me. That's where I am, 75 out of 100.
And the answer to the question is not right or wrong. It's a sentiment question.
Yeah.
So in this discussion, you're about 50%, you're at 75.
Yes.
And I normally find that people are somewhere between 30 and 70%. That's the norm. You know, there's outliers. Sometimes I get people that say, no, that's it, I'm out. I've had enough. This whole country's going the wrong way. And some people that, you know, are nothing but South Africa is, you know, so somewhere between the two. But why is that relevant? Because that guides my thinking when we sit down. So if you say to me, right, and I look at net worth, 75% of what you have, that you own, your asset base, should be in South Africa. But 25% of it should be the lifeboat, just in case at the next elections, Julius Malema potentially wins a coalition government with the ANC, and then SACP take it down a more socialist route, and then we're on a path to Venezuela. You know, not impossible, okay? Because at the end of the day, people are fed up with ESCOM, and I potentially agree with you. I think that a more centrist government, like what happened in the UK in the 80s.
Yes.
You know, we had 3-day week, we had power cuts, we had miners rioting all over the place. Now look at where the country is. So what I'm saying is that there is no right or wrong, but there is a doubt. There's a small doubt. There's a bigger doubt in your discussion. You know, I would actually say you're on a 50-50 flip of a coin. So if all of your money is in rand, if everything you own, you put an R against it, rand, 100% in South Africa, you're on a 50-50 flip of a coin on whether you've got your money in the right place. So what I would say is hedge your gut. So if what allows you to sleep well at night is that half of your assets are in dollars or pounds or euros or Swiss francs, or in your case, 25%, that is what we should be looking towards as part of a financial plan. And that allows you to rest at night and go, actually, I feel comfortable.
But it makes sense the way you explain it.
What an answer.
I love
Wow.
it. Yes.
Yeah, really, really. Thank you very much. Wow. So that is the difference between having a financial advisor and having a proper financial advisor. So you have inspired me. I feel like I'm next to myself, looking at myself, you know, when I'm buffering, I'm like, wow, it's just this level of intellect and knowledge of the global market. We are blessed to have you in our country. We really are. And at the bottom of this video, we're going to supply all your information for people that have seen this content and want to reach out to you and possibly become one of the few that are very lucky to be called your customers. And I just want to say thank you. I highly appreciate your valuable time, and it's just been amazing. You will definitely leave us better than you found us. Really will.
And thank you both. Thank you. It's been a fantastic opportunity to talk to you both. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really feel nervous, uncomfortable.
That's good.
It's good. I love the fact that I feel like that. Thank you. I really loved every second of this, and I can spend another 3 hours with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you guys enjoyed the content as well, please leave a comment and a like button, and
please subscribe to our channel and ring the bell.
Take care and have a good day. Bye-bye, everybody.